Good morning, fitness, health, and mindset enthusiasts. This is Mark Boney with Supercharger Wellness, and I want to talk about the dreaded subject of steroids today. And the reason why I want to talk about it briefly is to just give a little bit of education surrounding the subject. I'm not going to get too into it. I just want to basically give a little bit of education so that maybe I can clear up some of the stigmas, because I've lived with stigma my entire life, whether it was from addiction or from bodybuilding or whatever it is. People take one look at you and they just make assumptions and they think they know you and they judge you based on your life choices, and it's pathetic. So I want to make this video to just maybe clear some of that crap up, okay? So there are a bunch of different kinds of steroids, okay? The only one who gets bad attention is anabolic steroids. And the reason being is because they grow muscle, because they make you look bigger, because they make you stronger, they make you faster, they make you better at sports, and all these kinds of things. And people don't like that. People don't want you to be better than them. People don't want you to have an edge. They want you to be below them. So basically, if you take steroids, you're a bad person. And that's a crock of shit. But there are other hormones that have been synthesized into steroids, because all steroid mean is synthetic version of a naturally occurring hormone in the human body. And there are different steroids based off of different hormones in the human body, and they don't get any negative attention. One of those being corticosteroids, cortisone cream, cortisone shots. These have way more side effects than a lot of anabolic steroids do, and they're way worse for your health in long-term use. Also, broncho inhalers. If you have asthma, there's corticosteroids in a lot of them. If they're steroidal-based asthma inhalers, there are corticosteroids in those things. That is why you're only supposed to use them for the recommended amount that you're supposed to use them every day. If you overuse them, you are taking too much corticosteroid into your body, and you can have problems. It's like having high stress. If you have high stress, you have high cortisol. High cortisol causes a lot of illnesses. This doesn't get any negative attention, but it's probably worse for you than a lot of these anabolic steroids when taken responsibly, okay? But that's just the way she goes. You can't see it. It's out of sight. It's out of mind. People don't care. The other one is birth control. Synthetic versions of progesterone and estrogen. Now, if you take birth control to prevent getting pregnant, nobody says anything about it, but you're taking steroids. So what's the difference? You're taking a steroid that has an effect on the body. That effect is not to grow muscle. That effect is to change the menstrual cycle so that you cannot get pregnant. But they're used responsibly. They're used in massive numbers. The person who created them has amassed a humongous fortune of billions and billions of dollars off of the intellectual property of creating birth control. There are many different forms of birth control. They're widely used and they're widely accepted. Okay? Now, anabolic steroids are the ones that get the bad attention. And a little bit of history. Steroids were created for use in medical. They're still used in medical. Some of them aren't. Some of them are. All of them, if not all of them, most of them were created for the sole intention of either use through veterinary practice or use for medical practice. And a lot of them are used for anemia, bone density issues, and to prevent muscle wasting in people who are sick, who have, say, AIDS, cancer, muscular dystrophy, etc. They've also changed a lot of the way that they do things over the years. Maybe they didn't like the effects of one drug, so they go to another drug. Anadrol 50 was one that was created for the use of anemia. That's low blood iron. So people would give Anadrol 50, and Anadrol 50 had a massive effect on increasing the iron in your blood to carry oxygen or hemoglobin in the blood. That is why that drug was created. Now, people who take it for the use of bodybuilding will be demonized, but people who are taking it for the use of what it was intended for at that period of time, which is not used for anymore, no problem, right? It's ridiculous. So let's go back a number of years to 1991. 1991 was the year that the United States of America passed the Anabolic Steroids Control Act. And basically, they ran a smear campaign in Congress about the negative effects of anabolic steroids on youth. And there was this one young man named Taylor Hooton, and his father's name was Don. And Don Hooton took his story to national media and to Congress as an anti-steroid tirade to have steroids outlawed in the United States, because he was absolutely convinced to a man that his son had taken his life due to the side effects of anabolic steroid use. Now, Taylor Hooton was in high school. He was a top-tier baseball player, I believe. He took steroids to increase his performance so that he could get better at baseball and achieve his dreams. And he did so irresponsibly, okay? Taylor Hooton did steroids. He came off steroids cold turkey. He never ran a post-cycle therapy, which is to increase your testosterone levels post-cycle. So he basically was walking around with zero testosterone. If you look up the side effects of low testosterone, it causes a lot of nasty things: demotivation, depression, your performance goes way down, you lose all your gains, you feel weak and pathetic. And it's a terrible, terrible feeling. And that is why you have to responsibly use post-cycle therapy drugs to boost your natural testosterone levels when you are done your cycle. He didn't do that. You know what they did? They gave him SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or antidepressants. So they gave a kid who had no testosterone in his body, who just came off an anabolic steroid cycle, antidepressants. You know what the side effects of antidepressants are? Suicide. That's one of the major side effects. So when you already feel like killing yourself because you have no testosterone in your body because you're irresponsible, and then you take an SSRI, which has another effect of creating suicidal thoughts, and then the guy kills himself, and then you're going to blame it on freaking steroids, and you're going to take it to Congress. So they passed the Anabolic and Steroid Control Act in 1991, and that was basically how they did it. They brought a bunch of baseball players up. Mark McGwire, Barry Bonds, a couple other guys were brought in, and they were questioned extensively. They wasted the time of Congress for a period of time in 1991. They could have been working on actual relevant issues, and they passed this. They had a whole bunch of doctors that they consulted to see if these drugs should be put in the schedule, the drug control schedule that they were put into, and not one of those doctors recommended that these drugs should be put into those categories. But they did it anyways. And Joe Biden was the big one. He was the big figurehead behind it, and Don Hooton, and they just basically ran this big smear campaign. And that is how steroids became illegal in the United States in 1991. Until then, you could buy them over the counter. You could go into a pharmacy or get a prescription from your doctor, go into a pharmacy and get anything you wanted. Decadurabolin, testosterone, no problem. All of a sudden, they're federal offense, and you can do jail time for them. Just for possessing testosterone, which is a synthetic version of the drug or the hormone that we have in our bodies. And you can be thrown in jail for having that. It's the same as demonizing marijuana use now, okay? Marijuana was smeared to demonize a certain group of people. Back in the day, we're talking like the 1920s, 1930s, whenever it was that they did that with reefer madness and all this nonsense. And then everybody was like, hey, this stuff's not so bad. Nobody's dying from this. But they'll prescribe opioids all freaking day long. But marijuana is terrible, okay? So now all these things have been disproven, and they've got all these studies out, and it's being used and legalized for medical use. It's being legalized in places in the United States for recreational use, and it's coming to Canada now. So you really have to be careful on what kind of misinformation we take in and believe it to be true, okay? Now, with anabolic steroids, there are a list of anabolic steroids. Every one of those anabolic steroids is different. They are all synthetic versions of the hormone testosterone, and they all have different effects and side effects, some positive, some negative. Now, when you're going to take these drugs, if you decide to do so responsibly. There are ways of doing things responsibly, not like an idiot and just taking anything that Momo dummy at the gym tells you to take because he told you so, because he's got good biceps, okay? You need to go learn, educate yourself online. There are many, many educational videos out there. There are books, there are websites, there is information, there are studies. You can read these things, watch these things, do whatever you need to do before you make this decision. But don't do it irresponsibly. That's all I'm going to say, okay? It doesn't look good, it makes everyone else look bad, and you look like shit because you're not doing things properly. You fill up full of water, you get acne, you get bitch tits, and you look like crap. And that's just the way it is when you don't do things properly. And then when you come off, you're not going to come off properly because you're too cheap to buy a PCT, and you're going to have no testosterone like Taylor Hooton. You're going to lose all those gains that you got on the steroids, and you're going to look even worse and feel even worse. So, yes, there is demonization. There is misinformation. But it's also perpetrated by the people who use them because a lot of the people are stupid and irresponsible, and they don't think and they don't take it upon themselves to educate themselves. So before I continue ranting, I just want to say I hope this was informative for everyone. If there are any more questions, you can DM me on Instagram or whatever. I'll answer anything that I can. I'll also point you in the direction of proper information, but, you know, don't ask me to get them for you. Don't ask me particular questions about particular things. That's not my game, but, you know, I just want to help people and do things responsibly and educate people so that they don't make bad decisions that can change their life in a negative way. So everyone, let's be safe. Let's be responsible. Let's use our freaking heads. Let's make right decisions for ourselves, our lives, our futures, our families, and let's get supercharged.